It's a slow progression. No, there's still some coming in, but good to see everybody this morning. No better place to be. Good morning. I had a brief panic attack. Never had one before. I'm looking for my notes, and I cannot find them. And they were stuck in my Bible to one of the pages, so I FaceTime my son at home that has a mouthful of toothpaste, and I go, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I don't understand." I like, "Go upstairs in your mother's office right now, FaceTime me when you get there." And so I'm flipping through all my pages here, and Chase calls me back and he goes, "What do you need?" I go, "Index cards, look at them." And he grabs a bunch of them that I've been using for studying. I go, "No, I don't need that one. No, I don't need that one." There was like 20 of them. He was like, "Dad, it's not in here." And I'm like, "You got to find it. Where's it at?" And he goes, "You had it in your Bible when you left." And I go, "I know I did, but they're not here now." And so earlier someone might have saw me doing one of these, and poof, there they go. And so I just texted him and I said, "I got him." And he's like, "Relax." So good to see everybody, though, this morning. I'd like to thank those that are online watching. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about a speech that Paul Harvey gave back in 1965 that has a lot of things in it that happened before Paul Harvey gave his speech and are happening afterwards. And these aren't anything new for us. God told us about sin and what sin will do and what it is. And it'll keep going on afterwards because the devil is extremely busy in today's world, and I think it's more accessible to see it. It's more in front of our face than probably any other time, at least that I can think of in history, because of technology. You just can't. The only way you can escape it is if you don't have technology. You stay away from the radio. You stay away from television. You'd basically have to go back prior to the television being invented, and then you would have to hear it by neighbors, word of mouth, letters, or things of that nature. But now you see it front and center. Today I want to talk about what we need to do as a church and as a community to change. I talked about Joshua 24:15. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We need to instill that in the generation that's coming up, our kids, our grandkids, every opportunity we get. I know Jen and I, we have four kids, we have 4 grandkids, and every opportunity we get, we bring Christ into a conversation, meals. One thing that we did from even before I became a member of the church, because I didn't grow up in the church. We always had dinner at the table. At 6 o'clock, my mom had supper ready. We were at the table. Television was off. Nothing was on. Now, sometimes we ate in silence, just depending on what was going on for the day. Until my sister came along. I was the only child for 10 years, and then she came along and ruined it all, and now That was it. You can ask my kids, I don't share. My wife just nodded her head. Olivia will agree to that. Do I share? No. I blame it on my sister for being an only child for 10 years. But we always made a practice of eating at the table. Saying a prayer, and I made the family rotate saying the prayer. And we still do. Now, I try to get them to volunteer now, so now it's usually voluntold. And so now we do that with Felicity, our granddaughter. Actually, Jen does that quite often with her. Starting at a young age to get that instilled in them moving forward. Because it's a huge challenge we have moving forward in today's world. 1 Peter 5:8, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. That's every day since the beginning. If he had like back in the old Wild West, guys carry a gun on their side and they got notches in there for the number of people that they killed. The devil probably wouldn't have enough room. And we have to fight that. We have to get away from that. We've talked about how he's engulfed the world in darkness. And it's evident, and we need to make sure that we combat that in every angle possible. Nothing's new. The things that we've been talking about, that Paul Harvey in his speech, it's been going on from the beginning. Romans 1:29, they were filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness, gossip, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, and ruthless. It just seems like that just keeps getting, I don't know if you could say worse, because it's already pretty bad, but it seems that that's something that we see all the time, no matter what. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
I think that describes today's society in many, many ways. But it also describes society in many other generations.
Mm-hmm.
Not just ours, but in many other generations. What Paul Harvey wrote could have been true in the 1500s. It could have been true in the 100s. Go back and look at any of the Roman emperors, from Caesar Augustus through, we won't talk about Caligula because we're in church.
Mm-hmm.
You won't pick out, and you can fit this into it. The problem with it is, we're Christians, and we march to a different standard. If we're going to change anything, we have to be Christians 24/7, all day, every day, 7 days a week. And sometimes we're not acting like that. The series Tommy's been preaching on Sunday morning. Sometimes we don't even like each other, let alone act like Christians 24/7. We've got to stray away from this.
How do we fix that part? As the church family.
Well, we've got to get to the point where we say, I love everybody in the building, not just, I love most of you. Okay, it's we've got to literally love everybody. And we've got to realize that Paul was right. There is no Jew or Greek. There is no male or female. There is no in our society today, there is no black or white. There is no English or Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
We're all Christians, and we've got to embrace that. If we don't, how are we going to? We're not going to get to heaven. We talk about how we're going to get along in heaven if we can't get along here. We're not. Because if we can't get along here, we're not going to get to heaven.
Yeah, I mean that's so true, and I don't think we talk about it as much. And I mean, we might here and there, and I think it's just one of those. I think it could just be one of those topics to where we bring it up when something happens, something transpires. Yes, sir.
The reason why we don't love on each other like we should is our allegiance sometimes is to other things outside of God and what He desires for us to do. And so our allegiance then becomes to our culture. Our allegiance is pointed toward our political preference. Our allegiance is toward a mask or no mask. When we go back and read Ephesians 4, we go back and read Romans chapter 1, the gospel is for all, Christ died for all. Ephesians says we're one. There's one body, one God, one Lord over all. And we tend to lose focus of that as we walk daily in this world. And because we don't think that way sometimes, the result is, as Tommy's preaching on Sunday mornings, we're not acting like a family. We're not acting like we love one another. It's kind of hard to share the gospel with the world when we don't act like we love one another in the church.
Yeah, just a personal thing. I was baptized at the Church of Christ in Hiram. And a good friend of ours, Jennifer's best friend, Rochelle, the Plunkett's, we met them there. I'd never been to a business meeting before at the church, ever. And didn't really know what takes place or what they talk about. And, oh, wow. When we got done, and Freddie and I are good friends. He was actually here a couple of weeks ago. Brother Dwayne talked to him. We were talking over there. We walked outside, and I go, why did you bring me here? It was unbelievable. There was probably 8 of us there. And the thing that really shocked me is that they all knew I was brand new. And men got up and left, like in the middle of the meeting, like talking ugly to each other. And And Freddie goes, the look on your face was sheer shock. And I go, yeah. I go, this is insane. And it goes back to Brother Dwayne was saying about love one another. I was like, I told Freddie, nothing getting accomplished here. There is absolutely zero getting accomplished here.
And now you know why God said we should have elders.
Yes, because at the time they didn't. And it was, I got home and told Jen, I was like, I don't know so much about this church thing, especially this business meeting, because it was just, it was crazy. It was wild. It was wild. And a couple of the gentlemen came up to me afterwards, and they apologized and said, hey, Ron, it typically doesn't go like this. And I'm like, okay. And I said, I'll be back. Don't worry. I'm not running away. I said, it was just really a shock to see. And all of the men in that meeting had been at that congregation for years and years. And so there had to be some form of love there somewhere for them, because, a lot of them have been there 15, 20 years. But to see them go at it like that over just trivial things to work on. I take it you've been in one of those, brother? And so, but that was enlightening. A scripture that I use with my kids all the time when they were growing up, and even now, is Proverbs 15:3. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. And I always tell them that you may hide it from mom and dad. They may not know until 15 or 20 years down the road, because my dad has said the same thing after he found out some things. But you're not going to hide it from God. It's there. You may not think it's there, but it's there. And sometimes he has a unique way of letting you know that he's going to let everyone else know. And that's something that we have to instill in the younger generation, that God is with you no matter what, but God sees everything. He sees the good, the bad, and the ugly. And sometimes it's hard for the younger generation to kind of let that sink in, because I've heard some speakers before say, I wish the knowledge that I had now, that I had a little bit of it when I was a teenager. Don't we all? But we still have to keep moving forward and training our children up in the word of the Lord. Because if not, we could see a generation that falls away, which is a scary thought. It's a very scary thought. And I know some people, yes, sir?
My kids taught me a valuable lesson in talking to them as kids and then talking to them as adults. As an adult, they can admit that they got what they needed as children as far as lessons being taught, instructions, encouragement, but their minds weren't ready to
Grasp it?
grasp it and apply it. So it's not that they didn't hear.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they didn't learn, but they got what they needed. So it reminded me of the story of the seeds in the fertile ground. And where do those seeds fall? Right? And so for our children, yeah, they may hear it, they may partially understand it, but as an adult now they really get it. And so going back to what you said, I wish you heard people
Mm-hmm.
might not know the way that you receive it.
Yeah, most likely. And hearing it from my parents in one ear and out the other. But now, when I have those conversations with my parents, they laugh. Told you so. But that's okay. And I tell my kids now, when we talk about something, don't believe the old guy. He doesn't know anything. And then as time goes on, they'll come back, Dad, God, I really hate to admit you were right, Dad. I'm like, yeah, because I'm a sore winner and I'm a sore loser. And my family, she knows. Yes, sir.
One of the things that I learned, I was surprised how much smarter my dad got between the ages of 18 and 21. My 18 and 21. I could talk to my grandfather, and I could learn things from my grandfather. I had a great uncle. I could learn all kinds of things from Uncle Hubert. I mean, he could tell me things, and I could just pick them up. Did he talk? He's just being dead. Okay? But between 18 and 21, he really got smart. I have learned that I can talk to my grandchildren and they listen.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not trying to tell them what to do. I've learned that you can't. But I can talk to them about what they're doing and what they want to accomplish and where they want to get to. Grandparents have a role to play. Moses was right. Talk to your children and your children's children and your children's children's children. So I've got a role to play as long as I'm still here. I talk to them. Don't preach at them. Don't tell them what they got to do. Just talk to them. They like to talk to me. They'll come in and they'll wait till everybody's gone. They'll come in and sit down and they'll talk to me. They'll even sit and watch a ball game. I love to watch baseball.
Mm-hmm.
They'll sit and watch baseball and talk to me because they can. And then when I want them to do something, I'll say, you want to go with me and eat breakfast, or you want to go with me and get a cup of coffee, or an iced coffee, or you want to just ride with me, and they'll go do something. We have an obligation to talk about God and God's ways with our grandchildren, just like we had it to talk to our children. And we need to look. I wish I knew now what I should have known when I was raising John and Rob. They'd be better men.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they're all that bad now. Okay? So, but I wish I knew more. I wish I'd done a better job. Don't you wish you'd have done a better job?
Oh, by all means. Especially now after you'd said last week about how you brought up about Moses and our children's children and our children's children. That's so prevalent for me now and because of grandkids. Really didn't think about it. I mean, yeah, I was excited and thinking about it. Eventually, at some time, we would get grandkids or whatever. But then slowly it was like, I gotta do. This may come out the wrong way, but I gotta do this again. Like, teaching God, teaching what they need to do, and start as they're young, like we did with ours. And it just really didn't sink in. I think it sunk in more for Jen than it did me. And then I see it now more and more, and I'm like, wherever the word parent is, whether it's parent or grandparent or great-grandparent, the job is not done until you're no longer here.
You will always be your children's father. You will always be somebody they can come talk to.
Mm-hmm. I hope.
You hope.
Yeah.
And you should set, that should be a goal. When times are tough, they can call you. My sons call their mother frequently. When they're in trouble,
when the phone rings and they say, let me talk to Daddy. No,
Yeah. Same here.
the car's stranded on
Yeah.
the road, the car's in the ditch, they need Daddy. But I need to be there and have enough patience and wisdom to say, here's how we get it out of the ditch.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is. And that's for all of us. That's for all the fathers. And it's for all the mothers. Whether they're trying to figure out how to cook Thanksgiving dinner or whatever they're trying to figure out. We need to be there as parents, fathers and mothers, to help our children. And your children are fairly young. My children are in their mid-40s. So, you know, when my baby sits on my lap, his feet drag the ground.
Yeah.
And many of us have that same problem. Marissa's over there nodding her head when her baby sits on his lap, on her lap. His feet drag the ground too.
Been a long time since you sat on mine.
Me too. But you understand, it's what we're trying to do. And we have to keep watch. The Lord keeps watch. We have to keep watch too. We're how we turn them from evil.
Yeah, sometimes I catch myself getting aggravated because my kids know where I'm at today. They know where I'm at every Sunday. They know where I'm at every Wednesday. But occasionally, they'll ask me something about a Sunday. I'm like, you know where I'm at from 10 to 3. Where are you at? And sometimes I'm probably telling myself a little bit. Sometimes Jen will go, hey, you need to text, fill in the blank, with one of my kids. Hey, you at church today? Or, hey, I'm teaching class, kind of fits your age group, come. And I sometimes, this is a big hurdle that I have, I'll get aggravated because I'm like, they know. Like, why I gotta send them a message and remind them? And then the better half of my life was like, calm down. It's what you got to do. It's just part of it. And I think I've mentioned before, when we first got married and moved to Georgia, Jen's grandmother called her every Sunday. Now, I didn't grow up in the church. It wasn't that I always believed that, there was God and Christ. It just wasn't a priority. And so she had some uncomfortable conversations a couple of times. Well, I did, but Ron didn't. Things like, well, then she was a lovely lady, Miss Wilma. Let me talk to Ron. Yikes. Okay. But now I see it and reflect on it because just like Moses said, our children, your children's children, your children's children's children, it's a mindset that we have to get into to bring it to our families. Tommy's lesson last week, patience. Whew. Last week was rough, brother. Yeah, last week was, Jen and I, like 3 or 4 different times, like, I guess that lesson was directed at us because that word came up about every other day. Yeah, we actually did, so. So I'll be down front later.
It makes you feel any better? There were several times this week when he says, I guess I need to practice what I
Yeah, it was, Monday morning, boom, it started right out the gate. But that's something that we just have to not only practice in patience, but practicing with our children and our families, even those that aren't members of the church. Those aren't easy conversations either. It can be trying. It can actually put division in your family when you try. Me and my dad have butted heads more times than I can remember. My grandparents were dedicated. They went to the Baptist church where I grew up, and my uncles and aunts, my uncles grew up in it as well. And so when I start having those conversations, it can be rough. Make it very difficult. And so we have to watch. I think the biggest thing is we have to watch how we talk to everyone in general when it comes to talking about Christ. You just can't go in there with, as they say, both barrels blazing, trying to talk to someone about it. Especially when it comes to different sins and different things of that nature. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9 says, "There's nothing new under the sun." That which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. Everything that we see now was back then. Everything that we see now was going to be here when we're gone. And so we have to educate our children on what to look for and how to combat it.
The big difference with it, and that's right, that's correct. The big difference with it is it's on TV. It's on 169 channels. It is instant gratification. You can see it immediately. Just change the channels. It's there. What was the show? There is a new show on Virgin. No, there's a new show on that just highlights all this stuff. I walked in on it. I said, "What in the world?" There's a cartoon that it's on a children's cartoon channel, and it has nude people. My wife walked in on it one Saturday morning, and I had to pick her up off the floor. And one of my grandchildren was sitting there watching it, eating cereal out of the box. It's why in the world? And they didn't think anything. She turned it.
We can't just let our children go. Like, we can't let them just jump on television. We can't let them just...
On the internet.
Our oldest, Tyler, he is a movie fanatic. That's his addiction. He is a movie fanatic. We have a routine of every Thanksgiving, there's a new movie that comes out. And I like it because, I'm going to sidetrack on a couple things. So my dad never liked me buying something for him, like going out to lunch or dinner or something like that, because he felt like, I got money, I can buy it. Well, I know you can, Pop, but so do I. So I let my kids buy whenever they want to. If they offer, I'm like, got it, where, what time? I'm there. And I'm not picky. I don't care if it's ice cream or if it's dinner. Sure. Because to me, I think that's something that they want to do and they like. Well, I don't think they would offer. Like, hey, Dad, I'll buy a ticket to the movie. Okay. Well, it might not seem that big a deal to me, but I think it is to them, even though it might be 10 or 15 bucks. Because it's like, yeah, I can take my mom or dad out and do something like that, and it makes it feel. I think I may be wrong, but it makes them feel good. And so, building that connection with them, not only that part, but with God in the middle of it, just makes things that much stronger. Are they gonna stumble? Yeah. At some point, because we all do. I just think we have to be there when they ask for help or advice. Sometimes we probably need to give it when they don't ask. That can be uncomfortable, especially if something's going on and you need to do it out of love. Proverbs 4:23 through 27. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it springs the issues of life. Put away from you all deceitful mouth, and put perverse lips far from you. Let your eyes look straight ahead, and let your eyelids look right before you. Ponder the path of your feet, and let your ways be established. Do not turn to the right or left. Remove your foot from evil. That's something that we have to talk to our families all the time, especially in today's technology world. You can't flip anything on and be safe. It doesn't matter what it is. There's been times where, the kids, now I still call them kids, even though they're always going to be my kids, but out of school, they'll want to show me something. And maybe they just saw the caption of it, and then they go to flip it, and then they turn it on, and then next thing you know, try and turn it off. Because they just saw the caption of something that looked funny, and then the next thing you know, it's beep. And that's what I'm talking about. You just can't assume, and that's with anything. That's television, radio, movies. Getting back with Tyler and movies, Olivia can tell him about this. He's a Power Ranger fanatic. I don't know how many of you know what a Power Ranger is. He's addicted, like bad. He's even got Felicity addicted now. She knows what a Power Ranger is: red, pink, yellow, blue, green, the swords, the whole thing. And back in the day when we had a VCR and you put the tape in, back then we didn't look at everything in detail to see how it was. And so he was watching one. Jen walks in and like, what are you watching? This Power Ranger lady doesn't need to be in Power Rangers, that's for sure. The way she was dressed and everything like that. And so that tape got repoed. And you just can't assume everything is okay when you turn your children loose with TV, technology, or whatever the case may be. Because you never know what's going to show up. How are we projecting our light in darkness now in today's world? Are we doing that? Do people see that? I've only, I guess you could say I experienced it twice, I guess you could say. I used to work for Cintas delivering uniforms for 20 years. And I had a particular customer that was, she was my customer for 15 years before she retired. She worked at Print Pack in Villa Rica. After probably a year and a half of servicing that customer, totally caught me off guard. In there getting the invoice signed one day and telling her the things that got taken care of, and she goes, "Can I ask you a question?" "Sure." "You go to Church of Christ?" "Yeah." "Why?" Because no one had ever asked me that, said anything about church, religion, or anything. And I go, "Yeah, right over here." At the time, we were at Villa Rica. She goes, "I thought so." I go, "Why?" She goes, "Well, it's kind of how you carry yourself, how you talk, how you conduct business, you know, how you come in and just do things, just your demeanor and things like that." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I just never thought of it like that. And I had another customer, you know, probably 4 or 5 years after that, you know, say the same thing. So, you know, the thing I'm getting at is that people are watching. Everywhere, people are watching how our light is shining, whether you think about it or not. And she was actually a member of the Church of Christ. I forgot where it was at. It was in West Georgia somewhere. I forgot exactly where it was at. Because then that just started a whole new conversation, and we knew a lot of different individuals and stuff like that. But don't ever think that no one is watching, whether they're in the church or out of the church, especially out of the church. They're probably watching harder. This is a little take here on what Paul Harvey was writing. This is something that we did together. "If I were light in darkness, I would want to engulf the world in light. I would begin with a campaign of love and show it to all I came in contact with, even the mean ones. Not a love of acceptance to do whatever you want, but rather a love of encouragement and patience. I would lead by example and show others the joy and gratitude in my life as opposed to frowny faces and complaints. I would start with the youth and teach them God's word over and over and over, so they would know it like their ABCs and never forget it. If we were as diligent as we are of getting our kids to school Monday through Friday, to all the events, if we were that diligent in the church, we would definitely be in a whole different world. And then lastly, Psalms 119:11, "Thy word I have hid in my heart, that I may not sin against thee." Got to stay busy, take care of the youth, and be parents until we are no longer here. Appreciate your time and comments in the class. Class dismissed.